Let's get right into it. This week, the name on the marquee has got to be Thug Rose Namajunas, who this past weekend defeated Amanda Ribas by a unanimous decision in a 5-round fight that was the headliner of UFC Fight Night, Ribas versus Namajunas. It went down, of course, at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. Mark, start us off. Give us your take on how this fight played out. Thug Rose got it done. Her first big win at 125 pounds, turning the rising Ribas back.
Yeah, it was a good fight. It was a little bit of a strange fight because it felt like neither one of them could truly find a way to shine in it. I thought they both looked good overall. They both fought a smart fight where neither of them really gave the other any openings to exploit. Even on the ground, everything was just stifled by whoever was on bottom. So it wasn't the most exciting fight ever. I feel like neither girl really had a chance to show out, but they both fought well. From Amanda's side of things, she had her first main event. She hung with a former champ in Rose Namajunas, and even had some people who thought she should have won on the cards, which I didn't quite get. But my point is, despite the loss, not a terrible night for her. And from Rose's perspective, she got herself a win at 125. Now, granted, it was against a girl who also spent a lot of time at 115, so maybe not quite a true flyweight, but nonetheless, got a win, and she needed that. And she did look good. She was ready for the jiu-jitsu of Ribas. She controlled the grappling positions for the most part, I thought, outside of round 3. It seemed like she was a step ahead. And her timing was as sharp as ever. She still sees every little movement and can take advantage in the striking. She was slipping and countering beautifully. But I got to say, I did think she looked slow. I'm pretty comfortable in saying that was the slowest Rose Namajunas we've ever seen. So I don't know if that was an age thing or if it's a weight thing. I guess maybe we'll find out a little more next time we see her in there. But I thought it was noticeable compared to her normal self. But it didn't stop her from getting a W. I do think it was the right decision. I don't really get the people trying to say Ribas won that fight. I thought Rose won 1, 2, 4, and maybe even 5. So I was glad it went her way, but I thought it was well fought from both girls, and obviously a big win for Rose at this point.
Omar, bringing you in here, Omar, what were your thoughts of this fight over the course of 5 rounds?
I was also, throughout the fight, I should say, even from round 1, Ribas getting up and putting her hands up as if she had dominantly won that round was very odd to me. And I'm sure it was, we've seen fighters in the past just sort of do that as a way to either hype themselves up, keep themselves in the fight, play with the judges' feelings and things like that as sort of a strategic move and things like that. But it's just always very odd to me when you clearly didn't win the round. I feel like that works better in closer rounds, if you're trying to game the system to a certain extent, but like whiffing in a round and then putting your hands up seems really odd to me. And she did it every round. I'm not even sure if she did it at the end of the 3rd round, which I thought she won, which was also very weird to me. But I thought she clearly lost rounds 1, 2, 4, and 5. I didn't think that there was any debate. I was actually kind of confused as to why there was such a debate. There is no debate that it was a scrap. There is no debate that it was, a war to a certain extent. Neither one of these ladies backed off of each other, but I thought Rose got the better of her in most exchanges, especially on the ground. I think Ribas tried to do a lot of things that worked for her in a lot of the other situations with lower level competition that Rose took advantage of. The head and arm drag is one of them. The head and arm drag is one of those things that if you don't do it right, there's a lot of vulnerabilities. A lot of that placement of where that drag comes from. If you're too low, the center of gravity will just let you get flipped over. If you're too high, they can escape out the back door. There's a lot of things about that drag that if you don't do it right, gets you messed up. And Rose took advantage of it a couple of times, early and later on in the fight as well. And I think especially with somebody like Ribas, who we've seen utilize that technique over and over again, when you get to these high and elite levels, if they can nullify one of those techniques that works for you that well, you then become not only predictable, but easy to react to and easy to capitalize on. And I think Rose was able to do that throughout the fight. Third round, I thought, was the round that she clearly dropped, and she did look like there was she did look slower. I didn't think she looked any less skilled, though. I still think she looked like the Rose of old in that sense. Very in and out. I thought we had somebody in Ribas who was able to bring the fight out of Rose as well. We didn't have that Carla Esparza counter fighter on counter fighter kind of situation. So I thought it was a great fight. I just didn't think Ribas won any of those rounds other than the third round. I
still don't think that Ribas' stock necessarily fell on this loss. If anything, I think her stock rose as well, at least a little bit, because she showed that she can hang in there with a world champ. And she did not look bad at all. She was not blown out of the water. She wasn't blown out.
No.
And she held her own.
No, I agree. That's kind of what I was trying to say about her. But yeah, I think an aspect of this fight that made it weird where some of these people think Ribas was doing more than she did. And I think even the UFC strike counter thing, whatever their name for it is, was falling for this in a way, because you would see these counts and it was like Ribas is way ahead. Meanwhile, you're watching it and you're like, no, she isn't. There was a lot of shots that were hitting like Rose's shoulder and like Rose was blocking or slipping. And these are all, it seems like, adding up for Ribas. Meanwhile, like every shot Rose landed, Ribas's head was snapping backwards. So it was just, it was a big difference in the way things were landing, even though the numbers seemed to be saying, oh, look, Ribas is really outstriking her.
And I can tell you from a defense perspective, having a shot land on either your elbow or on your shoulder or something, something that you can react off of, because there's a lot of times that in a fight perspective, you're trained to react off of an impact. It's like a catch and shoot kind of situation. So you're catching a shot somewhere, whatever, and then you're reacting to it, uppercut, cross, whatever you want to do. But like a lot of those situations are necessary. So I feel like to lose points for something where you've defended properly seems like not a good situation.
Yeah, that's interesting for sure. Let's talk about where these ladies are going to go from here. Let's talk about Thug Rose Namajunas first. So her record now improves to 12-6. She's now 10-5 in the UFC. That was her 5th decision win as a pro. And she snaps a 2-fight losing skid. She lost in the title fight to Esparza and then lost a decision to Manon Fiore. The Esparza fight, once again, was a split decision loss. And now back to 125 pounds for another shot. And she gets the W over the very tough Ribas. Mark, where do you see Thug Rose going from here at 125?
So I think there's a few different paths for her. And she mentioned 2 of them, but it's actually option 3 that I am going with. She mentioned the loser of Blanchfield and Fiore, which is certainly possible. She mentioned Macy Barber, which is certainly possible. But to me, I think that is where they should go, that Macy should be fighting the loser of Blanchfield and Fiore. And I would like to see option 3, which I've said on here a couple times before, which is Natalia Silva. I think Rose and Natalia is a fantastic fight.
Yeah, man. That's a great fight. Omar, any other thoughts on Thug Rose?
I don't hate that. I did like the Macy Barber fight. I can't say I really don't. I love that fight. The Natalia Silva fight, though, is a good fucking fight.
Yeah, man.
And it's not like it doesn't make sense. I mean, they're right there in the rankings. So it's
I actually didn't even look. Where did they debut Rose? Has anyone looked?
7. She's right above Natalia Silva. It's like 8, the perfect fight. Yeah.
Makes
fantastic. Okay, let's talk about Amanda Ribas. Back in the loss column after defeating Luana Pinheiro back in November, now losing to the former champion Thug Rose Namajunas, her record falls to 12-5 and 7-4 now in the UFC. That was her 4th career loss by decision. Omar, give me the name of who you think Ribas could match up well with next.
Well, Tracy Cortez and Amanda Ribas were matched up way back when in 2022, and that fight got canceled. So I think this is probably a good time to revisit that situation there. I think the striking is interesting from Tracy Cortez in that aspect. I think Ribas, I think, likes to make us think her striking is legit, but she does a lot more moving than she does successful strikes. But her ground game can be a real problem if she gets a hold of somebody and gets on top. Rose obviously exploited a lot of situations in her ground game, but we have to see if Tracy Cortez is on that level. So I love that fight.
Mark, your thoughts?
I do I do like that choice if she stays at 125. I'll give you someone at 115 just because I know that she had said in her last fight when she went back down to 115 and beat Luana Pinheiro that she had tried 125 and she felt like she wanted to make another run at 115. But then this Rose thing came across her plate, and obviously you get a chance to fight Rose in a main event, you're going to take it. So
Sure.
I'm kind of assuming that she's going to go back toward this plan of 115. Who honestly knows with her, because she does seem to bounce between both quite often. But I'll take that route since Omar covered 125, and I will say the loser of this upcoming fight at UFC 300 between Jessica Andrade and Marina Rodriguez. And I know she fought Marina already, but it was like 3+ years ago, and I think it could work at this point to run it back, even if that's who it ends up being. But I think either of those are cool fights.
Nice.